Hello and welcome to the latest Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo. I'm Joe Rimmer, and listeners at home, can you feel it? Viewers on Facebook, can you feel it? Watchers on YouTube, can you feel it? Ian Doyle, can you feel it? Paul Gorst, can you feel it?
I can feel it, yeah.
The magic of the FA Cup. It's magic, isn't it? Some people would have you believe that the FA Cup is a dusty old thing that's worth a big revamp and put the League Cup first, but those people would they'd still be right, but it was fun yesterday, wasn't it?
They would be you, wouldn't they? There is no magic of the League Cup. There's no such thing.
There could be if you got on board. But anyway.
Well, by the end of this podcast, there will be the magic of the League Cup because there's a small matter of a semi-final to look forward to. But yes, we have the third round at Arsenal. And I know that my colleague Paul here, he was less than enthused as we were stepping into the car at Burnwood Services around about 10 o'clock in the morning. But by the time we got there, someone managed to G him up and he was a little bit more excited at the prospect of playing against Arsenal. Well, not him, but Liverpool playing against Arsenal. And then by the end, he was positively, eyebrows were raised and hands in the air. Well, whatever your equivalent is.
Cup fever, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was
an epidemic in Liverpool.
It was. Tell you what, though, we said it wasn't like that at half time.
No.
Which I'm sure we'll get into the game now, I suspect. And I think Liverpool first half. Klopp said after he couldn't quite work out what Arsenal or he didn't expect the formation and the approach that Arsenal had done, which was 4-2-2-2.
Yeah.
Wingers properly out wide and man marking all around the pitch, and Liverpool just couldn't get to grips with it for the most part of the first half. And it took good performance from Kanate. Alisson Becker was fairly solid at the back, and they were probably the best two that came out of the first half. I mean, second half, which we'll debate in a little bit. Different story, but that first half you were slightly concerned, but you can always tell, I think, when you go to these away grounds, you can tell from the reactions of the home fans how things are going for their team and what they're expecting. After they'd missed the first two chances, certainly the one where Odegaard hit the bar and there was the block, wasn't there? That was Reece Nelson, wasn't he? Kanate blocked from, and then a shot. Liverpool just got it away. Then something happened shortly after that. I think it might have been Havertz with a bit of a weak effort at when Gomez gave the ball away. I think that was that one as well. So at that point, you could see the home fans for you could hear the grumbles. Whereas if you don't go there every week like we don't, we were thinking, Arsenal are over Liverpool here. They're bound to score at some point. Was they looking at it from the point of view, oh no, not another game where we've missed a couple of very presentable chances. And Liverpool built on that, and Klopp made his changes at half time, which funny enough were changes that they weren't exactly like, what's he done that for? It's more like, I can see exactly why he's done that because this wasn't working. And it could have been something they may have tried anyway in the first half. It wasn't like spectacular tactical this, that, and the other. It was just going, right, we're going to move this player to here, this player to here, this player to here, and this player to here. And they all did kind of the same jobs, but they did them to their level and what might have been expected. I mean, Nunes, look, at first half, he was up against, I think it was Saliba, wasn't it? Didn't really get anything from him. Didn't get much service, to be fair. Second half, he goes out onto the left wing and he's running Ben White all over the place, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean,
or Ben Brown, as he should be called. Ben Town.
What do they call him? Benny Blanco, don't they? But he's anything but Blanco. I mean, I watched it at home. Gorst, you're there in the stadium, and I found the narrative around the game quite interesting. There was a lot of talk of Arsenal's domination after the game, and it was a lot of it was put on Arsenal rather than the credit I think given to Liverpool. And I think people almost expect teams to go away to places and dominate all the time, and that's not the case, is it? You have to ride out the storm, like Doyle said. You have to allow them to get in their own heads a little bit, make some tweaks, and it was an impressive squad performance, wasn't it? There were several good performances, but I think everyone played their part really yesterday.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's kind of getting overlooked how many players Liverpool had out.
Massively.
Everyone's just kind of saying, Mo Salah and no Van Dijk. But obviously Endo's been an important part of the plan the last sort of 6 weeks or so. Obviously Szoboszlai played almost every minute, hasn't he? He's been available.
Both left backs.
Both left backs, not a left back in the squad, not a senior one at least. Joe Gomez doing a job there in his almost third favourite position out of the three in the back. Joe Matip as well, I think he's another one who's massively underrated outside of Liverpool, where people don't necessarily think that he's, an important member of the team, but he's Liverpool's starting centre back. So everywhere you looked, there was, people injured and players not available for Liverpool. So they've gone there with a little bit of a selection crisis and rode the storm to an extent. Stayed in it, created enough chances of their own, and have nicked it at the end. You could almost tell it. I think I wrote it in our match blog. Getting into the last 10 minutes, it was almost like Liverpool thought, right, we don't want to replay it. Let's just go for it. And they did. And Ramsdale made that save from Diaz, didn't he? And then Liverpool get the breakthrough with the own goal. And then that counter-attack is just Liverpool at their best. When they kind of move from defence to attack, when the spaces open up, they're as good as anyone in world football. And that's has done the job on Arsenal. And they go to the fourth round. And it's all just starting to feel a little bit like 2022 for me, where everything's still in play and Liverpool are winning big games and the atmosphere is coming back, the feel-good factors there. And if Liverpool can get 2 or 3 back from injury, or maybe even, if Egypt have a bit of a shocker, or Japan, which I don't think Japan will, but Egypt perhaps, you're suddenly looking at it thinking, what is possible? Because the Europa League doesn't resume until March. Liverpool will know by the next couple of weeks if they've got a final to play for at the end of February. So it's all starting to develop into a massively encouraging season.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, I want to talk about some of the bigger performances in a minute, but again, another shout for Ryan Gravenberch. I thought when he came on, made a really positive difference. Obviously won the free kick that the goal came from. Quansah, again, I mean, for a young lad playing his first real season of first team football at Liverpool at the highest level, I mean, I know he had that one thing where he sort of seemed to hurt himself and lost the ball, but in general, barely puts a foot wrong. Is playing as well as you'd expect from a young centre half like that. Conor Bradley came off the bench, was excellent. I mean, you could go through them, can't you, Doyle? It really felt, just like in 2022, it feels like a squad thing. Everyone is really chipping in at the moment.
What I thought was quite funny, actually, you've just mentioned that. I don't actually think Gravenberch was particularly brilliant again, but
he made a positive.
What I was going to say is that he won the free kick, didn't he, for the first goal from Odegaard? Was it him that won the ball, or moved it on for the yeah. So he makes a contribution, which even if you're not playing at your best and you're still able to do that, then that's obviously a very good thing. Quansah, first half was a bit of a struggle for him. Yeah. First half was a struggle, and you got to bear in mind, I think it was his 11th or 12th start as a senior. Well, at that level, because obviously he played last season at Bristol Rovers, wasn't he? Yeah, Bristol Rovers, second half of last season, I should say. And he's obviously taken quite a lot from that, because he's the best thing you can have as a youngster is you learn on the job. Basically, it's like any kind of profession, here as well. You can talk about it, all this, that, and the other, and you can do all the kind of practice. But until you're actually out there doing it in an FA Cup third round game at Arsenal, in that kind of, it's not the most volatile atmosphere, but it was still loud. There's still 60,000 people there, and a lot of them are going to be, 53,000 are going to want you to make a mistake. And Arsenal obviously had a bit to prove, given the results that have gone for them recently, where they've lost a couple of games. That was at Fulham and West Ham. So they started very strongly. And of course, there's no Van Dijk. That's the other thing as well. So Quansah's alongside Konate. I'm sure we'll get onto him in a bit. But he learned from it. Second half, it didn't look like a player who was only making his 11th or 12th start. He was somebody who he showed that can learn from that, take on the lessons in such a short space of time. And even when he's never really had a bad game, has he, since he's come in? He's had difficult moments like he had in the first half, where Arsenal pressed him they pressed really, really high on Liverpool in the first half, and Liverpool couldn't quite, as you mentioned before, get to grips with it because the formation wasn't quite right, or the players weren't in the places that would benefit them more. But you mentioned Conor Bradley. He was very good when he came on, wasn't he? When you consider he was up against Martinelli as well, where I know you've got a bit of a thing about when they're picking on Trent.
Well, But he matched Martinelli's energy, didn't he? I think when he came on.
He made a few good interceptions with headers. And what was interesting about them is that there was one he put behind for a corner, but the other 2 or 3, he just headed them into the path of an attacking Liverpool player to get Liverpool on the attack from that. It's one thing to defend. It's another thing in the defensive motion to then put your team on the attack. He's always front-footed, which is obviously, that's the kind of fullback that Liverpool have kind of bred under Jurgen Klopp through the academy. And then Bobby Clark comes on and fouls Declan Rice, which I thought was incredibly funny.
Yeah, well, played his part, didn't he? Trent, obviously, I've got a bit of a bee in my bonnet from yesterday. I know you've had a bee stuck in your bonnet most of the season with Trent Gorsty. I mean, I just thought he was central to everything great Liverpool did yesterday. Has been now. I mean, certainly in the past. I think it was around October we did sort of a season so far, and I said I thought he'd been quite quiet, not in a bad way, but just not really grabbing the headlines as much as he did last season. He seemed to be less sort of getting the big assists, but in the last sort of 6 weeks or so, he's really come to the fore. And I thought last night he was brilliant. What did you make of him, and what do you make about the conversation surrounding him?
Yeah, well, I didn't hear what got said at the time, obviously, but I listened to it back just before we come on with Keown and Murphy and Lineker, and it wasn't quite as negative as I thought it was going to be.
As I made out.
No, not just you. I've seen a few people on Twitter when we were on our way back, but I just think this idea of why is he still a right back and whatever else. I mean, I'm sure I've said on the pod it might even be time to try him in a midfield role, but just wherever he plays, he's always going to be influential. And I think he sees himself as a midfielder for England, but at Liverpool, he's happy just to play wherever Klopp wants him, because he knows the plan is to service him with the ball and let him kind of do the damage against the opposition. I thought he was superb. That one, the first half, where he takes it with his kind of chest to his own goal. Yeah. Dribbles past Reece Nelson and then Kai Havertz, and then plays the ball up the line with his left foot, which Diaz probably should have done a bit better with and could have been a counter-attack. 99% of defenders would have just smashed that with the right foot away, out for the throw-in, regroup and go again. But he's just so remarkably calm and composed, and it speaks to his own faith in his own ability, really, that he's willing to take it in tight areas like that, dangerous areas, and we've seen it when he drifts into midfield as well. He's always happy to have the ball, take it wherever it is, and he's confident enough that he thinks, I can play a pass from here and we can get up the pitch and try to put the other team on the back foot. I thought he was superb. Obviously, Martinelli got round him twice when he come on, but Martinelli's a Brazil international. He's getting thrown on after an hour. It's going to happen now and again, isn't it?
Fullbacks. My issue with the post-match stuff, which I tweeted at the time, was, Liverpool had just won. I thought done a good job on Arsenal, certainly in the second half, and the conversation immediately turned to Trent. And rather than just fulsome praise of what a performance, what a player who is, playing from right back, but playing in such a way at the moment that he's central to everything Liverpool are doing. What should be his best position? And I was thinking, but his best position for Liverpool is the one he's playing right now.
How much better can he get?
Yeah, and for me, it's like Thierry Henry used to play from the left and come in, and no one would say you need to play more centrally, because that worked for him and his style. And I think at Liverpool, the way Trent plays, it works to have him at right back, move into central areas, and giving Liverpool those two sorts of dangers. And Liverpool can attack really from anywhere. He can play it long, like he did against Arsenal the other week. He can play it short. He can now dribble with it a lot more than we've seen him do. So I don't understand why. And then immediately, here's a clip of him getting beat by an attacker, as if any other fullback this doesn't happen to. I mean, if we watch the next game that's on TV together and just watch one fullback, we'd see them get beaten 2 or 3 times, because that's what happens. There aren't players that never get beaten. So it's just a weird thing about Trent. Sorry, Doyle.
What's interesting about that is the perception, and we're not guilty, but we're part of this as well. Yeah. In the sense of there's people who won't see in the game. Right. Yeah. There'll be some people who won't see in the game, and they rely on us to comment on it. And as we've mentioned quite a few times, I do them, but majority do the player ratings. Yes. Now, my point I'm making is that obviously we don't get the commentary from the game. We see it as it is. And I gave Trent an 8 and almost gave him a 9. I thought, well, he was quite clearly one of the best players. It was him, Alisson and Konate got the 9 for the man of the match, because I thought he was just a little bit of a level above the other two. And then you mentioned all that stuff about, obviously, I haven't even actually seen the stuff that Keown and Murphy. Did Shearer say anything as well?
No, he wasn't.
He was in the because he was doing the commentary on the game itself as it was going along. Mm-hmm. And I did get a few messages off people saying, like, what game are these people watching? And this morning I had a look on the BBC website, and they do their player thing where it's got the ratings. And Trent was like massively the lowest player from Liverpool, like a full point off. He had like 5.3 or something like that. And I'm thinking, these are people who are only going off what those people, what the pundits are saying at the end of the game, rather than just watching it for themselves. And they're influenced by that. And, that goes back to what you were saying about Trent, and that how come he has to put up with all of this when, all these other, Ben White went past him a few times. Joe Gomez made a mistake. He passed it straight to them. He lost the ball in the first half. He played left back for Arsenal. Yeah, well, he scored. literally scored in his own net, and he got less criticism.
There's a narrative around Trent that just will not go away, and it doesn't matter how good he is around the other end. I mean, look at the month Kieran Trippier's had.
I was just about to mention Trippier.
I would say that he has been good. He has had the criticism, to be fair.
He has over the past.
Totally.
But I don't think now. Will we analyse every time Trippier defends? Will we analyse the way he defends for every game?
They've lost, I think you don't. The last 16 games, Newcastle, dating back to the start of November. He had their argument at Bournemouth with the fan, and he was wholly responsible for what happened at Everton when they crumbled and lost 3-0. Was he responsible for at least 2 of the 3, wasn't he? Yeah. Maybe even the 3rd.
Look, I mean,
Trippier is like 30 odd though, isn't he? So he's kind of he did his growing up at Burnley. It was Burnley, wasn't he? Started,
he's a decent fullback.
He's a good player.
It's just the disparity in the kind of critique around respective games.
Well, maybe in
internationals are both right backs.
Maybe in some ways it's a compliment because you think certain players, it's almost like you want to be the perfect player. There is no such thing. And even Messi made mistakes.
Yeah, and I think it's a compliment because Trent's ability with the ball and at the other end of the pitch is such that they almost want to have a conversation around him every game. But I just find at some point, why are we talking after an FA Cup game about where he should play for England? Why are they not concentrating on just the influence he has at Liverpool from right back? I think it's incredible. We've not really seen this from a right back, really, ever, have we?
Maybe that's the whole point then.
Maybe it is. By the way, if you are watching along on Facebook or YouTube and you want to send us a question, our producer Ian will send them to me and we can chat around them. But yeah, I did think that Trent conversation was quite extraordinary after the game. But someone tweeted me in response to me tweeting that, saying he defends as a unit, and of course
it's a systemic thing.
Exactly, and a couple of times Klopp always says it, doesn't he? Gomez said it, didn't he, today? And in the mix zone quotes that you'd spoken to him yesterday. And of course, the 2 times he did get beat by Martinelli near the end of the game, who came across Konate. He was brilliant, wasn't he? And was that? I think it was probably his best performance of the season so far.
Yeah, if not that, it was against Arsenal again the other week, wasn't it? True. I just think he just needs rhythm and momentum and all that kind of stuff. And you're always hear Klopp mentioning that. And when players do get it, do find it, you see what he means when he says it, because Endo is a perfect example of it. Once these players start playing regularly, they start showing what they can do, as opposed to little 20-minute cameos here or there, or coming in cold after a couple of weeks out. Jones is another one, to be fair. Once you start getting that run, and Konate, spoke to Van Dijk after one of the games recently, and he said about Konate he's better than I was at 24. He's got all the tools in the world. He's got all the tools to be one of the best defenders in the world. And I think sort of 2 years ago, we were looking at it thinking, well, he's one of the best young defenders under the age of 23 in Europe, as Liverpool went to the Champions League final. And since then, he hasn't really kicked on and pushed on. But I think now, with Matt about for the season, he knows that if he stays fit, he's going to be playing alongside Van Dijk more often than not. And he's had a really good sort of, 5 or 6 weeks. And now he just has to build on it, because he's got absolutely everything, hasn't he? Just treated Martinelli like a ragdoll, didn't he? Last night and the other week at Anfield, to be fair. He just covers that ground so well when Trent kind of vacates the space looking for the ball, and he's got everything for me. Yeah,
I mean, there's 2 things I think that take you to a Van Dijk level, and that's the confidence. Van Dijk is like, I've never seen a man more confident in himself in my life. Just when you see him close up, he just carries himself, doesn't he? The way he walks around, and then just staying injury free, I think will be massive for Konate.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? It's like, it's been interesting that Klopp's had I wouldn't say a run-in, but he'd had 1 or 2 comments to make about the way France have treated him. I think it was early this season with Deschamps, where he played all bar 3 minutes and then came back, and Klopp was instantly not playing him in some games. So they obviously know that he's got, if not a fitness issue, then certainly they very keen to manage his minutes to get the best out of him. But he can't keep on doing that forever. Mm-hmm. He's 24 now, isn't he? Yeah, he's 24. So he's kind of reaching that age where, as you mentioned, Virgil van Dijk said that he wasn't as good as Konate was at that age. But the next couple of years is when he has to make that step up, because when you get to 27 as a defender, then you are looking at, the only thing you're adding on top of that is experience. That's the experience of coming up against different types of strikers, different types of strikers, and learning to deal with them. And that's, you only get through games, and you play games by being fit. So it's been it's one of those circles. Virtuous circle, I think, is the phrase. Yeah. So thank God I'm a journalist. So it's that, and I think that's his next step. Is basically you can be the best player in the world. And we've said this so many times about other players but if you're not fit, you may as well be as good as I am.
Yeah. Well, that's I think always been Konaté's biggest problem is that you get a little spell and then he goes out. You get a little spell.
Yeah, and also matter being in form.
Yes, true. Yeah. But I think. I look at other, Saliba, for example, is a player. I think Saliba is a very good player, but Konaté doesn't get talked about at those heights because I don't think he's had the run that those players have, and I think he just needs to try and.
Do you think that's part of the reason? Why he's done so well against Arsenal? He's made a point of it because he's been up against Saliba.
No, I don't think so. I think just certain oppositions suit you, don't they? Particularly with Martinelli coming in off that side, and he can cover the ground with his pace and his physicality, really. Just think he seems to match up well, and Gabriel Jesus as well. He just absolutely dominates them, doesn't he? When we've seen those games last season and then the other week, and obviously he didn't play the other day, but it'd be interesting to see if he's back for the Premier League game in a few weeks. Yeah,
you mentioned it before, Doyle. Nunez moving to the left. Do you think every single time I see Nunez from the left, I really like him. I think he causes chaos. His running makes a real difference. The great thing about Nunez is he doesn't let his head drop, does he? He can miss 2 or 3 chances and he still wants the ball. He still picks it up and runs with it. And I thought last night he made a really positive difference from that position. Is that somewhere you think that with Jota back, Salah away, is that somewhere that Klopp could put him? Because Diaz almost seems to always play, doesn't he, when he's fit from that position?
I mean, it is that, but there's also, if you're defending as a unit, you attack as a unit as well. And I think what was interesting everybody watched it, spotted it. In the first half, Liverpool were playing all these diagonals to the left wing where Diaz and Nunez was drifting over, and they were getting nothing out of Saliba and Gabriel. So they moved Diaz over there. Nunez goes here. Gakpo and then Jota offer something different where they're not hitting the balls up there because they know they're probably not going to win them. Yeah. And the whole thing changes. It's not just when putting Nunez on the left that makes the difference. It's the fact that everybody else moves around him and that helps him out. And I think he's got the skill set to play there, hasn't he? He played there for Benfica. Yeah. He scored a lot of his goals coming in off that wing. And he's played there before for Liverpool last year. He played, was it at Tottenham. He had a good game there.
He actually had a really good cameo in the 1-0 home win against City last year. He came off the bench.
Oh, and he did that miss, didn't he?
He did that miss, but in general, he just ran them ragged, I thought.
But then he's always got that in him, and I think it didn't help him in the first half that Liverpool was so indifferent going forward. I know Trent hit the bar, and you mentioned about Diaz should have done a little bit better when he got into a bit of space. I think Elliott had 1 or 2 runs where he could have crossed it in, didn't actually, get the ball in that he actually wanted to deliver. But once you start getting the ball to him, he's able to do something. Yeah. And one thing that did happen when he first started, he would often just drop deep, going off looking for the ball, and you just felt like saying to him, "Go away!" Yeah. Just go stay up there. Yeah, do go up there. We'll sort this out eventually. You just go up there and just wait for us to get the ball to you. And I think he's been a bit more patient in that regard. And I mean, long gone are the days where we thought, is he good enough to play for Liverpool? I mean, he's only scored the 1 goal in 14, 15 games now. Got the goal against Burnley. That won't help, but everybody else is scoring goals, and he's still playing a part. He played a part in the second goal, didn't he? And also for the first goal, he was the one that was one of the ones that was nearest to the ball where
I thought they were worried. First,
I actually thought it was Diaz who'd scored it.
But Diaz sort of seemed to celebrate it. I think, like you say, I think the way Liverpool work as a team, it doesn't really matter. If Nunez doesn't score a single goal for the rest of the season. If he sets up
to go and win things or whatever. Yeah. I mean, I think going forward, I thought that the way Klopp changed it yesterday is giving them a real blueprint now for life without Mo Salah for the next few weeks. Diaz out on the right, Nunez on the left, and then toss going between Jota and Gakpo.
Jota was very good, by the way, when he came on yesterday.
Three games in a row. I made an impact. I don't know whether they're just easing him back because he hasn't played for a month, but he'd be my starter down the middle now for the next few weeks. Just offers just such a threat, doesn't he? In and around the box, a real predator.
Yeah. Thing is, that Klopp said, didn't he, before the game? He said we have to try something different now that Salah's got.
Yeah.
And if Liverpool can't quite work out what they're meant to be doing, the opposition aren't going to know either, because they've always known that whatever Liverpool did with the front three, Salah was always going to be on the right. So they always knew that. But now maybe Diaz can go there for a couple of games. Maybe Harvey can go there for a couple of games. Maybe Jota could go there. Maybe they could play 4-2. I mean, that was a debate in the press room before the game whether they were going to go to 4-2-3-1. We thought they might have done that. Well, they didn't, obviously, but they do have that option, and that's before we even go back to Trent. I think Trent ended up playing in midfield, didn't he? Curtis played in midfield.
Yeah.
I think he might even try as a Bosley there if he was fit. He gave him a go there against Bournemouth in the cup, didn't he?
Yeah. So there are the options.
I'll just read out some listener comments before we continue. I'm sorry if I do butcher your name. Gemini Makuthi on Facebook says, high time to stop listening to pundits as they lose focus in reference to Trent. I do think some of the discussion around Trent pundits
do we count as pundits?
I don't know. Yeah,
no, because
I think people who don't watch Liverpool that often have a very lazy conversation about Trent. I think it happens. And Gary Lineker is someone who I really respect. Gary Lineker talks about, loves Trent. I mean, if you look at Twitter during any Liverpool game, Gary Lineker quite often tweets about what a player he thinks he is. But I did find it very odd last night. Mark Davis on YouTube says, some fantastic performance, even without Salah and Van Dijk. It was insane. I'd agree. I mean, Arsenal, I know they've had a drop off, but
they won 2-0 at Arsenal in the FA Cup third round. First time they've won at Arsenal in the FA Cup for nearly 60 years.
Yeah, I mean, Arsenal until the last couple of weeks, we were talking about them as if they were, title winners in waiting and a very, very good team, and they are a very good team. So I thought it was
and crucially as well, it's a major rival for that trophy out.
Yeah. Absolutely,
because you only really. I mean, we were talking about it on the way back. I think there's only one tie that you'd fear now if you're Liverpool, and you don't want to get Man City away. But other than that, bring on.
Hang on. I just added, don't want to play Everton. Don't want to play Newcastle. You don't want United.
I don't mind anyone at home. Man City away, I think it's tough, but Man City will get.
City will get the Brentford reject.
Bruno. What was his name?
Manchester United. Yeah. Bruno de Gradi.
Bruno de Gradi. God, that's a good memory. Fair play.
Can't remember any of the others.
Yeah, and their manager, he was on crutches, wasn't he?
He was,
never got that injury.
Truly cut short.
Yeah. Your boy Bamidel on Facebook said Liverpool weren't magic. In fact, they were terrible. A team like Aston Villa would have had them in pieces yesterday. So fair play. I mean,
is this you?
Yeah, I mean.
Tough to please some fans.
Our Everton sporting producer under an alias there. And then Steve Hyde on Facebook said need to strengthen in January, defender and a midfielder. I still don't think
a midfielder. Who? Where? Midfielder? Where?
I still think there is an argument to say that if you're planning Endo's 30, and if you're planning long term for defensive midfield, then if an opportunity arises, you should take it in January, like they did with Diaz, like they did.
Yeah, I was thinking about this actually. I made the point on Friday in Friday's pod about it just feels like there's an opportunity here now for Liverpool this month to kind of bring forward the summer plans and really go for it, because things have opened up which weren't necessarily realistic a few months back. But then I totally forgot about Bajcetic. Endo being there as a kind of surprise hit, shall we say. He could play there for another year or two, and Bajcetic just continues his development, and he come on leaps and bounds from August to March when he finally got that injury. If he carries on at that sort of progress level, he could be a serious option for years.
My only thing with Bajcetic is a big if, isn't it? We've only really seen 6 months of him first team.
He played nearly 20 games last season, and at times he was Liverpool's.
But the if is he hasn't played since played 2 games since March, so that's the big if, is how fit he is. And if you going back to what my little outburst there was saying, where is also based on the fact that not so much where in midfield can you strengthen in January, but where are you going to get this player from?
Oh, where you get the player from is always difficult. But this is where Liverpool, who plan windows ahead,
but don't forget that the last 2 were a Porto player and a PSV player, and Liverpool were both times still in the Champions League. And I know these things. It's a bit different. We look at it from a different point of view. But somebody else will think. We think Liverpool are going to get into the Champions League next year.
Yeah.
But Liverpool also going for the title. They're still in all the other competitions. It's not quite the same as in 2022, where they were right up there, because this is still a team that's trying to prove themselves. Yeah. And in 2023, they were slightly all over the place. And there was the whole post-World Cup. I think that window was different because I think a lot of more players moved than we might have expected, because a lot of players want to wait till after a World Cup before they start moving.
Well, centre back, I'd still. I mean, Quanta have been hugely impressive, but I look at Matip and think, well, he's out of contract in the summer, injured. Be interested to see if they give him another new deal, but I still think centre half long term.
Yeah, 100%.
I think. Yeah,
and that kind of goes back to the point I was saying. Don't make a signing just purely for a stopgap signing, and then you're left with a player who you don't really need. I think if you're going to bring someone in, it's going to be for the next 5 years as opposed to 5 months, which is what Klopp says a lot, to be fair. But certainly a Matip replacement you're looking at. And, they're going to have to bring someone in, aren't they? Yeah. Might sound harsh on Joel Matip, who's been an incredible player and serving for Liverpool for 8 years now, but he's got that ACL injury. He's out of contract. He's going to be 33 in August, I think. Yeah. So it's not looking particularly promising for his long-term prospects, and maybe you have to be ruthless at times.
I mean, just look at the numbers. You'd have to say, because of the two senior players who are going, it's a midfielder and a centre back in the summer, but not somebody who's going to threaten Quanta's place, as it were. Somebody's going to compete with him rather than somebody's going to go ahead ahead of him directly.
That's fair. How big a marker do you think, Gorsty, this sends for the rest of this month? Feels quite crucial. I know there's a little break in there, but with the semi-finals, then another trip to Arsenal at the end of the month, home match with Chelsea, tough trip to Bournemouth. I mean, even though it was a different competition, it feels like Liverpool have made a bit of a statement there.
Yeah, I mean, Klopp got asked about that, didn't he, in the press conference? Someone asked him, what does this say about the title chances? And he dismissed it, but it says a little bit, that Liverpool are a serious team again, I guess. You don't just go to Arsenal and win, keep them at bay and go on without being a really top side, particularly when you're leading the Premier League by 3 points and you've got a semi-final to come in another cup competition and your favourites for the Europa League. So, it was a statement victory, I thought, not necessarily just for the cup. I think just for everything around it, just to provide a bit more impetus and momentum for a season that is really gathering both at the moment. And it is a big month, isn't it? I think the break's going to be huge. I think the avoidance of a replay was massive because it means Liverpool are going to get a winter break now for the players and the backroom staff. I think someone was saying yesterday that Arsenal are going to Dubai, isn't it?
Dubai,
I wouldn't be surprised if Liverpool have got I think Abu Dhabi, isn't it? I wouldn't be surprised if Liverpool have got something similar lined up. We haven't heard anything as of yet, but they tend to go to.
Klopp did say, didn't he, so if they weren't in a replay, that they would be doing something.
Yeah, so I mean, they've been to Marbella in the past, haven't they? Or what's that one that England used to go to?
La Manga.
They've been there a few times.
Think of Paul Dickoff and Leicester. Was it them that had the big
with the fire extinguisher?
Yeah. It's those types of stories, don't you?
Yeah, dentist chair.
You're calling for players to be more unruly and misbehave more, set more of a bad example to the youngsters. Is that basically what you just said?
Yeah. But I think Liverpool will do something like that now that they don't have the prospect of a replay, and I think the results tend to improve. When they do that. Sometimes it's more of a training camp. Sometimes it's more of a relaxed family environment, and I think it'll be on Klopp to see which one he chooses for this one at such an important time.
You're not worried that the break will ruin the rhythm? This has happened in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm particularly worried about that. I think they've got so many games that the rhythm should be okay.
Just getting a few days off just to rest a few. Bosley and
get a couple back fit. And with the two legs of the semi-final, either side of it, I don't think it's too bad. Because if they weren't playing the semi-final, then you'd have a real break, wouldn't you? And that's when I'd probably be a bit more worried. So I know you've went into the season very much saying season of transition. I don't always really believe in seasons of transitions, but what do you make of it now? Are you still think that it's a transitional season, or are you?
Well, at the start of the season,
why are you smiling?
I don't know.
At the start of the season, I said they'd finish fifth, which I thought would be good because I thought that the top five would get into the Champions League.
Prediction.
Oh, hang on a minute. I did explain it, right? But then very, very, very early on in the season, you just went, well, hang on a minute. That obviously, because there was the great unknown, wasn't there, of what the midfield was going to be like. Yeah. But then you saw what some of the performances were like, winning against Bournemouth with 10 men, winning against Newcastle with 10 men, having been 1-0 down. We were talking about on the way home, weren't we? The draw at Chelsea on the opening day of the season was a massive result. So imagine if they'd have lost that.
Yeah.
Changes the mood of it. So those 3 games were very, very important. So, and then they beat Aston Villa. So, and we've seen how good Aston Villa have been. Yeah. I think they caught them at a good time, to be fair. That sets up the rest of the season, that is. Totally. That's absolutely set up the rest of the season. So that's why by the end of August, I was already thinking, well, they're going to finish higher than 5th. And the other teams have had a bit of struggles, but it's still Man City in it for the league. Man City are the team you've got to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
I think talking about what you mentioned before about what Burns is having the title race, the game against Arsenal, I don't necessarily think we learned anything new from it. It basically exposed Arsenal's problem, which is scoring goals and getting at the end of all those chances, which has been Arsenal's problem for a very long time, with the exception of 3/4 of last season. Towards the end, it became a bit of an issue again, which is why they fell away a little bit. With Liverpool, it's this season we've seen, as we've just explained for those first few games, they just don't give up. They kind of got that mentality back. And, Klopp says mentality monsters, this, that, and the other, but it's more than just that. It's the fact that they believe in themselves, that they can get something out of it, which is why at the end of the game, they threw on those youngsters, Conor Bradley and Bobby Clark. And while obviously the joke was, he's throwing them on to try and lose the game, by then they weren't thinking like that. They were thinking, as they were all the way through the game, by that point they were thinking, we can win this. And that's the approach that they took. And I think that's what people will have learned. If you're City watching that, you'll have looked at it and gone, these aren't going away anytime soon. And I think that's the one thing that we've learned from that game, is that even if Liverpool lose to Arsenal in the when they play them in cup, which is very, very, that could easily happen. That's not going to derail the rest of the season.
I think what's incredible about Liverpool is that they can play at such a high tempo, such a high pressing tempo, and play right through to the 91st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, whatever is added on. And they also have a squad of players like Conor Bradley who are just so well versed in those types of tactics that they can come on and carry it on. And you can see from Arsenal, who pressed very well in the first half, but once Liverpool made some adjustments, couldn't keep that up. We've seen Tottenham this season fall away quite significantly at times because they just can't keep the tempo up. And I think Liverpool and City are the only 2 teams that have really shown that they can keep those sorts of performance levels for that long.
Yeah, and it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? That's why sometimes you end up with a few more muscle injuries than you'd like, but then you've got to push the players as hard as you can to be able to withstand that type of football. I can't remember the exact number now, but Liverpool scored so many goals after the 75th minute.
I think it was season. 27, was it? It's already more than the whole of last season, isn't it?
Yeah, and it just tells you that this is a team who just go to the final whistle. Even when games that have already been won, they're still pushing on. So many games earlier on the season when they seem to be winning 3-1 every week, scored sort of like characterised by the goal for the 4th in stoppage time, or flying forward. That kind of gives players a belief that tight games that are 0-0 heading into the last 10 minutes or whatever, that they can go and win it. And it gives the supporters belief as well. And if the other team are aware of it, it might just sort of creep into their thinking as well that these get late goals here. So that's it's an important tool to have, I suppose.
Yeah, I always think with title challenges and cup challenges, it's not, unless you're a Man City or like Barcelona at their peak, one of these powerhouse teams that sort of just operate at that level. It's a momentum thing, isn't it? And I think with Liverpool, especially this season and in previous years under Klopp, they've built themselves into it. It's like Leicester. Leicester didn't go into it on the back of a 5-year plan. They built momentum and they took advantage of other teams not being at their peak. And I think that's what Liverpool have done this year so far. They've exposed teams like Arsenal who don't seem quite ready and took advantage of a poor first half of the season from City. Whether still expect City to put it together in the second half, but they've set themselves up quite nicely. Moving on, just wanted to dead quickly mention Jordan Henderson, just because I can't help myself really. But Gorsty coming back potentially to England and to the Premier League after 6 months, it just seems a remarkable turnaround for after the controversial nature of his transfer to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing to say is he's not coming back to Liverpool, is he?
No,
Jurgen Klopp got asked about it yesterday, in more general terms, about him returning, and he said, has Henderson held a press conference to say this? If he hasn't, then it's just speculation. But we know, the people reporting these things, it will be very true that Henderson is seeking a return. Yeah, I mean, he's been apparently disgruntled as to the lack of crowds, the level of the game, the level of the football in Saudi Arabia and the climate. And I think every single person could have told him that that's what was awaiting him when he made the move. And for me, it's just a sad end to his Liverpool career. Just handled so ham-fistedly, just kind of shepherded out the back door when he should have been leaving in the same way Milner left, the same way Naby Keita left. Getting a guard of honour at Anfield for that Aston Villa game. Could have even had a testimonial for him and all that kind of stuff. Just a sad end, but Liverpool have moved on, and there's absolutely no surprise from my end that it hasn't worked out.
It's incredible, really.
And in fact, there was a kind of wrinkle in detail in the Daily Mail's piece that he's going to owe X amount of money in tax if he cut short to stay, because the contract was only tax-free if he stayed for 2 years or something, wasn't it? So if he actually owes money on this comeback, it's just an almighty error of judgment from him and his camp. And, we'll see where he pitches up next. But, speaking to people yesterday, Doyle, we got the impression that only from a kind of outsider looking in point of view that, Atafaka under absolutely no obligation to agree to it. So he could even stay there for the season, but we'll see. I imagine he might come back somewhere on loan. So maybe a little bit further down the pecking order, and he'll just try to forget that this sorry nonsense ever happened.
An incredible fall from grace, really, and I think just a move that it really didn't need to happen, and badly advised and badly thought out, really, all round. Before we move on to picking our teams, dead quickly, Doyle, I'll ask you, watched a lot of youth games, you'll have seen him. Someone's asked, how good is Bobby Clark?
Oh, yeah, I really like him. Yeah. He's definitely, if he carries on the way he's going, he's been a bit unlucky this season because he got injured at the exact time he would have been playing in the League Cup.
Do you think he would have got out on loan, or would have
no, he would have been playing in the League Cup and Europa League. Yeah, he really likes him. Yeah, so he just got thrown on in an FA Cup game where it was 0-0, and he ended up making a positive difference. And he obviously his dad played, didn't he? Yeah. So he already learned a little bit about game management, should we say, from his father. So I think it's. I think he's somebody who, in the next 18 months, if he's not playing semi-regularly for Liverpool, I will be surprised.
Wow, that's quite a big prediction considering the squad that they've got.
That's what I get paid the small money for, to make these predictions.
Right. Well, predict your team then for Wednesday night, and give us
go on. We've got contrasting views over who the goalkeeper is going to be, or who the goalkeeper should be. I don't want on this Gallagher nonsense. I want to see Alisson Becker in goal because he's the world's best goalkeeper and he's trying to win a trophy. And it's kind of made peace with it 2 years ago, but I think maybe my opinion of Gallagher was higher then than maybe it is now. And I don't think he's a bad keeper by any stretch, but you've got the absolute best to choose from. So Alisson Becker is my goalkeeper.
So that means you're going Gallagher. I love the League Cup. But I'm going to choose Kelleher just because he needs to play. I think I want to put trust in him in big games.
I think it's an interesting game because he played in the league against Fulham and had a bad game, and they still won. And now we can actually genuinely judge him by the same opponents a few weeks later.
I don't want to have to judge him. Like I've seen enough.
Well, you're going to have to. He's going to play. Sorry.
He played a big part in the League Cup win.
He did, yeah. I got the thinking process of playing him in these games to keep him happy, to keep him as the reserve, as the understudy 2 years ago. Yeah. Now I just feel like it's there for Liverpool to go and win, play your best goalkeeper. Because it's not a position where it's not a central midfielder where you're worried about pulling up with fatigue or muscle injury. Goalkeepers aren't he? Alisson. Yeah. Hi, Alisson.
I take your point. I'm still going to pick Kelleher, but thanks for giving some. What's your back four, Doyle? Okay, all right. The focus is on you. Yeah.
I'm not going to make too. I mean, I don't think we can make too many changes, can we? Van Dijk, if he's shaking off the illness, should come back in. I'm most surprised how many times footballers get ill. Because I don't think I missed a day at work, working at the Echo with an illness. So
I don't know, but if you've got a very heavy cold, though, you don't want to leg around, do you? Don't blame them for that.
Maybe not, no. But Van Dijk.
Wait till Ola goes to nursery, then you'll be saying you'll be very different then.
Crying it in. Trent, Joe Gomez is going to have to stay at left back, isn't he? And keeping Kanate in to build on his good form.
So just Quanta out for Van Dijk.
Van Dijk, yeah.
If Van Dijk's fit, I'd play Van Dijk and Quanta.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with your back four. Conor Bradley was almost. If there wasn't a break after this, I would be tempted to start.
But that's the big plus point for Liverpool, isn't it?
Yeah. So go on. Can I ask you your midfield? Are you going to point it in?
Him again.
Go on.
I mean, there's not many options again, is there? Bobby Clark has maybe put himself in the frame, but they're going to have to go to the well again with McAllister, Jones, and Elliott.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, I concur. Yeah.
And up front, before you ask me, I will go with Nunes on the left, Diaz on the right. And I'm going to start Jota down the middle.
Yeah,
that'd be mine. Yeah,
and that would be mine. Yeah,
that should be Liverpool's now for the coming weeks. I think Gakpo plays and fits and starts, but I think Jota is just a lot more of a goal hound, isn't he? And you need something that you can pull something out.
Definitely.
The only thing you might do is if he wants to start Gakpo in the home game and play Jota the away one.
Yeah, but again, because of the break, there isn't the pressure to do that, is there? Go on, give us a score prediction. Gorst, I'll go you first.
Yeah, I think Liverpool could do with a nice healthy lead going to Craven Cottage, where they might have an opportunity to rest more for that one. So 2-0 Liverpool.
Yeah,
I actually think it's going to be really, really close. I think it'll be way tighter than people think.
It's their first ever semi-final.
Yeah, I think it's a big deal for Fulham. Either 2-1 or 3-1 to Liverpool. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 2-1. Let's put it that way.
I'm going to go 3-1 to Liverpool. Fulham, quite a dangerous team, aren't they? They did get Liverpool in the
Arsenal last week.
Premier League, beat Arsenal. Yeah, I think they're quite good, but I think Liverpool should and could overwhelm them. But yeah, we'll see. We'll be back to discuss that game on Friday, and then look ahead to the break. Thursday, we're going to go Thursday this week because
no game at the weekend.
No game at the weekend. So we'll be quick turnaround for us. Be back on Thursday. We'll discuss the greatest cup competition in world football, the League Cup, and we'll see you then.